Welcome to Early Indicators. This is episode 4 in our January domain on geopolitical realignments. Today's theme is currency diversification and the slow erosion of dollar-centric trade. We're examining signals that are structural, not events, early, not reactive, underreported, not mainstream, and directional, not episodic. These signals reveal a gradual but consequential shift in how nations settle trade, store reserves, and build financial resilience. Historical context. How we reached this moment. For nearly 8 decades, the US dollar has served as the backbone of global commerce. After World War II, the Bretton Woods system anchored international finance around the dollar, supported by US industrial dominance, deep capital markets, and geopolitical reach. Even after the gold peg dissolved in the 1970s, the dollar's role expanded as global trade accelerated, energy markets standardized around dollar pricing, and emerging economies integrated into Western-led financial institutions. But beneath this stability, long-term structural forces have been reshaping the monetary landscape. The rise of new economic centers, the expansion of regional trade networks, the digitization of payments, and the emergence of alternative financing institutions have created incentives for countries to diversify. The 2008 financial crisis exposed vulnerabilities in global reliance on a single currency. The 2010s saw the growth of bilateral swap lines, local currency trade agreements, and new payment systems. The current moment represents an acceleration rather than a rupture. Nations are not abandoning the dollar, they are reducing overdependence on it. This shift is structural because it reshapes global financial architecture. It alters long-term trajectories by encouraging multi-currency trade, regional settlement systems, and diversified reserves. It reveals fragility in dollar-centric networks, particularly exposure to sanctions, liquidity shocks, and geopolitical risk, while also revealing resilience in countries building alternative pathways. This theme fits the domain because geopolitical realignments increasingly manifest through financial infrastructure, not just diplomacy or security. Currency diversification is a quiet but powerful indicator of how influence is redistributed across global systems. Current signals: what's emerging right now? Several early, underreported, directional signals show that currency diversification is accelerating. Local currency settlements are expanding across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Countries are settling energy, food, and manufacturing trade in their own currencies to reduce exposure to dollar volatility. Regional payment systems, such as Asia's cross-border QR networks and Africa's Pan-African payment and settlement system, are enabling trade without dollar intermediaries. Central bank digital currency pilots are creating new financial rails that bypass traditional correspondent banking. These systems are still small, but they signal a long-term shift in how cross-border payments will function. Reserve diversification is increasing as central banks add yuan, euro, gold, and regional currencies to their portfolios. This is not a rejection of the dollar but a structural hedging strategy. Energy exporters are experimenting with multi-currency pricing for oil, gas, and critical minerals. These experiments are early, quiet, and rarely covered in mainstream news, but they reveal a directional shift in commodity markets. Sanctions-driven financial fragmentation is encouraging countries to build parallel systems to reduce vulnerability to external pressure. These signals matter because they reshape the financial system itself. They alter long-term trajectories by distributing monetary influence across multiple centers. They reveal fragility in overconcentrated financial networks and resilience in diversified ones. Signal strength, emerging, with pockets of acceleration. Case studies, where the shift is most visible. India UAE rupee dirham settlement. A growing share of energy and goods trade is now settled directly in local currencies, reducing reliance on dollar intermediaries and signaling a new model for South-South commerce. Brazil-China yuan settlement. Brazil's adoption of yuan-based trade for agricultural exports illustrates how major commodity flows are beginning to diversify away from dollar-only channels. Africa's PAPSS rollout. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System enables instant cross-border payments in local currencies, strengthening regional economic sovereignty. Southeast Asia's QR-based payment integration. Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore are linking digital payment systems to support local currency tourism and trade. Implications: why this matters. For nations, currency diversification reshapes financial sovereignty, reduces exposure to sanctions, and alters reserve strategies. For cities, it influences investment flows, trade corridors, and financial services ecosystems. For firms, it changes transaction costs, hedging strategies, and supply chain financing. For communities, it affects inflation exposure, remittance flows, and local economic stability. At the macro layer, the global financial system becomes more distributed, with multiple settlement hubs emerging. At the micro layer, small businesses, exporters, and local banks gain new tools for cross-border activity. This shift reveals fragility in over-centralized monetary systems and resilience in diversified financial networks that can absorb shocks. Future expectations/projections, where this is heading. Short term, 1 to 3 years expect more bilateral currency agreements, expanded regional payment systems, and early adoption of digital settlement rails. Commodity exporters will test multi-currency pricing models. Medium term, 3 to 10 years. Regional financial blocs will strengthen, with Asia, the Middle East, and Africa developing their own settlement ecosystems. Reserve portfolios will continue to diversify. Long term, 10+ years, the global monetary order will resemble a multi-node system rather than a single center hierarchy. The dollar will remain important but no longer singular. Early indicators to watch. New swap lines, digital currency interoperability pilots, multi-currency commodity contracts, and regional financial institution expansion. What to watch next? Track how emerging economies integrate digital payment infrastructure with local currency trade. This convergence will shape the next phase of financial realignment. Episode summary. This episode explored how currency diversification is slowly reshaping global trade and financial systems. These signals: structural, early, underreported, and directional, show a world moving toward multi-currency resilience and away from single-system dependence. Thank you for listening to Early Indicators. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. This episode draws on publicly available information, including international think tank reports, academic research, public economic and demographic data, open-source intelligence, and non-copyrighted summaries. This episode is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute political advice, financial guidance, or predictive